And the plant spirits, they get that message across to you.
Mm-hmm.
And how would you say that message is presented in your experience?
Well, one thing comes to mind. I spent an evening with peyote, and it was my first exposure to peyote at a level that had any significant effect on me. And I spent the evening mostly in solitude, listening to the songs of the various trees and animals that were out at night. It was in the Austin, Texas area. And it was a warm summer night, and I wanted to be alone in nature, and I left my friends, and I had a series of experiences, one of which was I was given a grandmother bud by a native that had wanted to introduce me to this level of the plant, and it tasted, I'll have to say with a blush, like a woman's vagina. And I've tasted peyote many times since then, and I've never had that experience again. And it was very confounding for me. It caught my attention, and it was a kind of an appropriate launch to the rest of the evening, because the rest of the evening seemed to be about resonating with the DNA of different species and finding my commonality with them at some level in the DNA evolution prior to being human. Going back and finding out what it's like to be a fish, a whale, a lizard. And I went through all these different beings that were in my immediate ecologies that were opening up to me and inviting me to share their experience, because I was in some state of resonance with them due to the plant medicines. And these things were not like sitting still and having imaginal things inside my skull only. There was much of that. But these were things like walking and hiking through the woods and having different things call to your attention, like a squirrel that wants to drop something on my head.
Yeah.
Literally like that. And things like that happen if you're available to them, and the plant spirits are there for that. They want you to see the world through the lenses of the plant kingdom. It changes the way you see yourself and what's going on this planet. Or it has for me and all the people that I work with. That's an essential part of all of our experiences, is that we're being called by the planet to serve, and to serve fully with as little encumbrance as possible.
Terence talks about them as dissolving our cultural imprints.
Yeah, McKenna and Leary both talked a lot about imprints and deconditioning, deprogramming, and I think that's all essential. John Lilly talking about metaprogramming your own biocomputer. Those were all potent metaphors to come out of the pioneers. They're like the prologue of neo-psychedelia. I think that what's happened now is the social knowledge part around psychedelia has exploded so dramatically in the last 5 to 10 years that there's really a massive amount of stuff to read now, and incredibly smart people going at it from lots of different angles. And that seems to be well on its way. The enthusiasm and momentum there is hard for me to fathom at times, considering where it was a few years ago, 20 years ago. So that's reassuring. People will look at it from new angles and make new metaphors, and for me, the re-imprinting thing was super essential. I used it very deliberately as a way to lose baggage from childhood and to get over heartaches and heal myself from trauma from being in a motorcycle accident where I should have died, and all sorts of stuff that I went very deliberately at with the intention of healing myself using sacred plants, and mostly mushrooms. Peyote was a lot harder to find in that world, and my experiences with that had been mostly with organic mescaline, and it was only for a short period of my life, but it was around the scene for a while in Austin before I moved to San Francisco. And I liked it very much. I especially liked doing it in nature and just being in nature with it. It wasn't for me always massively hallucinatory, but if I wanted to, I could just sit down and in front of any natural being, give my attention to it, and it would become as imaginal as I wanted it to be, which in some ways is an issue with all the a consideration with all the psychedelics I've used. I think that there's a random element that you never know where you're going, what Anton Wilson calls chapel precarious. You really don't know what's going to happen, and it could get scary on any trip at any moment. Everyone knows that, that's done more than a little bit of psychedelics. And on the other hand, there's this incredible peace and serenity and beauty and like almost a holy type of nostalgia for what humanity could be, might have been in the past, but certainly could be in the future if we can stem the greed and the violence and the fear. We could make something quite beautiful here. We're so near paradise, and we're also so far away. We're so near hell and so far from paradise. It goes either way. We really have a chance to make heaven on earth, and we're almost going to have to if we're going to make it through this birthing into a new kind of humanity, a new kind of, planetary being that's being born, that's not tribal-based. It'll be planetary-based. It is being born.
And with your mushroom experiences, do you think that you're picking up a transmission? Do you think what you're seeing is something that's inside of you that you're generating? Or do you believe that it's inhabited with other entities? How would you describe your mushroom experiences? What was in there?
Well, I've done it a lot, so it's all over the place. I grew up in an area where if there was a shower in the afternoon, everybody that I knew would get out of high school and go to a cow field and come home with a grocery bag full of psilocybin mushrooms. They were incredibly plentiful, very powerful, free to get, and everybody in Louisiana that liked psychedelics was very familiar with them. So I've done them from everything at picnics with my grandparents to heroic doses in a dark room by myself, as McKenna encourages. So I think that the answer is all of the above. There's certainly dose levels and experiential kind of settings where my personal story gets amplified or magnified, and there seems to be a healing energy around it that allows me to accept whatever sufferings or challenges that I've had to live through. One archetype that happens a lot, which is kind of embarrassing to speak about, is that if I haven't done mushrooms for a while, inevitably there's this aspect of the journey where the plants remind me that I'm here by choice, and that there's a new sort of bodhisattva model, that it's ordinary people are the bodhisattva, and that you're an ordinary person that fucks up and makes mistakes and suffers from broken bones and headaches or whatever the thing is that you get rolled into. That's your situation, and to live without suffering would be an inhuman state and a useless thing for a bodhisattva. So the plants constantly remind me that, even though you screw up, you have this opportunity and responsibility toward beauty and mystery and the reverence that I feel for life that is pretty much grounded from psychedelia. And outside of that, of course, I love walking in the trees and camping, and I can fall in love with any animal in moments. But something different is revealed when you share your body and your neurological system with a plant spirit. you're not only empowered, but you understand there's other ways that the world is being experienced around you besides the human one. I've had incredible experiences with like wasps and honeybees and owls, cardinals. I haven't been around the ocean that much, but I would be amazed if things didn't start crawling out of the surf to talk to me at some point. They certainly crawl out of the woods and deserts and mountains and creeks to present themselves, and that's an important part of why I live in the woods right now. I want to see nature as the canvas for all my work rather than culture. I don't want to have all the distractions of my very rich social life and intellectual life badgering me for attention, because I want to notice what the wildflowers are saying, what the turkeys are fighting over, what's eating my tadpole friends. I want to see it and be with it and understand it from there. It's taking me unplugging from massive amounts of internet usage to as little as possible. I work on my computers quite a bit, but I feel toxic if I go to Facebook or even my email now, because I've had to use it so much in my life, and being a digital artist, and now I'm reconsidering all that and unplugging every chance I get. And after Burning Man this year, I barely touched my computer for 2 months, and I had important stuff I needed to do, and I literally felt this toxicity in my solar plexus. Whenever I would try to open my laptop, it would be like an ex-smoker smoking a cigarette. It made me feel sick. I didn't want it. And I have to take that into account. We all do, because we're reducing our life to these little tiny floating rectangles that we carry in our pockets. And that's passing for community and experience. It's making us very moment-oriented. Doug Rushkoff has a good new book called Present Shock, and how we're all being so present-oriented that we're losing all the value of the past, even the recent past. And certainly in my experience, one thing I experienced in the scene, both the scenes in Austin, which I've been around a lot, and the scene in San Francisco, especially San Francisco, people are only interested in what's happening right now, what tweet they're getting or what they're going to post. What's happening in the very near future, the furthest out they look, is the next weekend. Beyond that, it's really irrelevant. They don't really want to have to think about it, even if it's on their phone to notify them to get on an airplane. They don't think about it till they have to. And also, they don't think about anything to do with the recent past. Like, almost nobody knows anything about things that were huge to my life, like Vietnam, or the bombing of Hiroshima, or the threat of going to nuclear war with the Russians. All this stuff that was huge in developing the counterculture. People were looking for new models, and one of the first places they could look was indigenous cultures that still had sacred plants that introduce you to new realms of knowledge, new types of knowledge, new types of experiences that were embedded in your own sensuality in your own body, rather than reading them in some syllabus that you get in college, or watching TV and seeing a documentary about something that tries to cover something very complicated in a few minutes, and that's considered education. It's very difficult to get to a point where you can really have a pop culture that most of the people read and that kind of stuff. We have a great thing going here if we can hold on to a little bit of it. We have a chance to accumulate massive social knowledge, and we are. People are reading and writing on the internet. They read and write more than ever. They don't read books very much, and that's gonna be okay. I'm all right with that.
And the publishing industry has changed so much, because you can publish what you want now without having to go through so many levels of permission.
I just published a new book on Billy the Kid, Cosmic Cowboy, that's on iTunes, and it's filled with things nobody has ever even tried to do. And it's a new kind of book. It's not even a book anymore, but we have to still use that word because we don't know how else to talk about something that's individualized, to be held in your lap, to be explored privately, like an